My name is Shay. I am the owner of Organic Lawns by Lunseth. During this presentation, I'll keep the chat open. And so if you have any questions, I'll try to read them as I'm going along. Feel free to try to stop me and ask a question. Otherwise, I can save a bunch of time at the end to answer any questions that you have. Okay, so I am officially going to call it summer. So some of the things I want to talk about today is weather, ascochyta, which is a disease that is we're seeing a lot of right now. So I just want to talk about that and show some pictures of what to look for. And then watering tips as we get into our hot, stressful summer months and weed control. So weather, something we're experiencing a lot right now is moisture. So one thing to note is that oversaturation is it while it's providing a lot of free water that's helping everything grow very well. We also don't want too much moisture because that's not good for our grass. Grasses do need a period of drying out to be healthy. And sometimes excess moisture can be advantageous to certain types of weeds. When we get out of maybe this rainy weather and introduce into the hot, stressful months, that's another thing that some weeds like to take advantage of. So just please be mindful about as we enter this season, we may need to reschedule services, usually due to heat, wind, or rain. So excess water, there are a lot of weeds that we are seeing right now that love moisture. So just keep in mind whenever I go to a house and look at weeds, I think about what weeds are there and what would be the causes of that. So we're not always looking at necessarily controlling the weeds. We're also thinking about what is the soil conditions that's helping those thrive and trying to think of it as a whole picture. So right now, creeping Charlie, sedges, speedwell, moss, chickweed, wild violets, smartweeds, and oxalis, all of those love moisture. So they're doing very well in these conditions that we're having. Excess water issues also can be, they can be due to rainfall. They also could be due to grading or drainage issues within the lawn, or sometimes over irrigating. Right now, even running irrigation with the weather that we're having, that would be providing too much water for our grasses. So just something to keep in mind. I know we have rain sensors. We might set our irrigation on an automatic timer. It is something to be said about keeping the irrigation in the off position and turning it on when you need it, thinking about moisture as something that's provided in a whole week. So we've received most weeks this spring, we've been receiving ample amount. One of these pictures over on the bottom left-hand side, that's just showing, you may not be able to see it very well, but showing some mold that's growing on top of the soil. So there's a lot of kind of odd things that are going on right now, and a lot of it's out of our control due to the weather that we're having. And then just making a plug for our landscaping is if you have areas that are constantly soaked and not growing grass well because of that, you might want to consider thinking about a landscaping solution. Heat stress, that's something where we actually did experience some of that this spring for bits of time. And then later on, but right now we got plenty of moisture and we are probably going to be entering into the hot summer months. So we're going to talk about some heat stress. This is a lawn that is mostly Kentucky bluegrass. That grass is not dead. It's just gone dormant to protect itself for when it is too stressful for it. Heat also is an environmental condition that there are several weeds that really enjoy that. That would include crabgrass, knotweed, foxtail, and purslane. You can see in that bottom right-hand picture where we might have things like concrete, stone, those areas. They will heat the soil around them will heat up faster than other parts of the lawn, and that's where things like crabgrass are going to they'll start emerging in July. So crabgrass, the seeds that are in the soil, they will germinate when the soil is 55 degrees, but then they'll start to sprout when it's very hot out. And you can see those along heat zones in the lawn, which is usually adjacent to concrete, driveways, walks, things like that. Knotweed, purslane, those are also weeds that love a combination of traffic, compaction, and heat. They do very well, and those are conditions that grass doesn't like as much. One thing to note about heat stress is that we always are looking at grass seeds that do well. The U of M is constantly doing trials at the St. Paul campus, and so we look at that information and hand pick our seed mixes each year. We do include a lot of hard fescue, chewings fescue. Those do hard fescue, especially the last few years, has done very well in the heat and the droughts that we've been having. Chewings fescue can do fairly well as well. We don't include tall fescue in our mix, but that is the most drought resistant grass that's available. It's also the most traffic tolerant, good for when you have things like a dog or dogs using the lawn. That is the most durable grass. It doesn't like to be part of a mix. So we can sow that in the fall. It would be an extra cost, and it would be something that we would do about a 90% mix of that with about 10% Kentucky bluegrass for some really trouble areas or super trafficked areas. But this is just showing you that our sunshade mix, what it is made up of this year, and our shade mix, both of those including chewings and hard fescue. And then, so weather and lawn care. Something I just want to talk about is things like heat stress, things like excess moisture could lead to less grass. So where our cool season grasses aren't doing well, where they might get stressed out, when that happens, weeds will take advantage of those situations. Those situations also can show symptoms of disease. The disease triangle is host, which is your grass, the pathogen, which is very abundant in our soils and in our environment, and then it's the environmental conditions. So when we have things like excess moisture, low temps, combinations of environmental conditions can allow disease symptoms to show. So generally, when there's a decline in the lawn, I would come out and look at the grass blades. I would think about what's happening in our environment and make a diagnosis that way. Usually, changing that environmental condition will allow those symptoms to go away. So in this picture, there is a disease called pink patch, and that is one that is brought on by cool temperatures and moisture. So something we often see in the spring and the fall. The picture on the left is showing just some bare areas, and you can see, well, maybe not well from the picture, but knotweed is filling in there where the grass was stressed out from last year's heat with the lack of snowfall this winter. The combination of 2 years of stressful summers and very low snow totals in the winter has made the grasses stress out and suffer, and weeds will fill in those spaces. So ascochyta is a disease that we are seeing a lot of right now. It actually loves when we go from a wet, humid condition and then we go into hot and dry. It will thrive in the very drastic weather changes. So I would say in the last 3 years, we've seen a lot more of this disease than I had in the 10 plus years before that. It'll look like straw-colored grass. It sometimes appears like it's drought, and so sometimes people will start watering more heavily, which will really just exacerbate the symptoms because it does travel with water or get some encouraged with water. It also will move with mowing patterns. So something that's really easy to see, if you mow it, it will the spores will spread, and so you can see like the tire tracks. So sometimes confused with burnout from mowing in an too hot of an environment, and it can really be a combination of things. The nice thing about it, while it does appear overnight, it can also recover quickly. It's very hard for the grass to actually die from this once the environment changes, or it could be a symptom of in the midsummer if somebody is overwatering and we have a lot of hot, humid conditions, then just turning off the water can make this grow out. And so the grass will start growing back green and will recover just fine. We are seeing just a lot of it all over town right now. So this is an example of a midsummer where somebody was watering kind of light and daily, and these symptoms came up. They started watering more. I said just to turn off the water, and in 2 weeks' time, all of those symptoms went away. So, in talking about watering, this is something I'm repeating some of these things in our webinars, but something I like to share a lot is that our grass really only needs 1 inch of water per week. It likes it all at the same time. You can see from this picture the root system. So, the roots will mimic the height of your grass cut. So, the shorter you have the grass cut, the shorter that root system will be. And the same for watering. If you're watering frequently and lightly, then those grass roots are only encouraged to stay shallow because it's getting that moisture. If you water deeply and infrequently, then those grass roots will chase that water down. They'll be more drought resistant, more resistant to the stresses of summer. So if you can, keep the irrigation in the off position. Water before extreme weather events. So in the summer, if we're going to have a period of 2 weeks, very hot and dry, watering ahead of it to get that grass strong to prevent dormancy is a good strategy. And then I'm going to show a video. So we do have videos on our website. We also have a YouTube station that has videos. So I just thought I'd share a couple here of watering, or this one of watering. And then if you ever have questions, going to our video library on our website can have a lot of useful information. Home lawns typically need 1 inch of water 1 time per week and only if it hasn't rained. So in Minnesota, sprinkling in July and August is usually all that is necessary. Irrigation should always be done in the morning and should also saturate the whole lawn at the same time. Sandy soils and large slopes may require watering 2 times per week. Overwatering is a common mistake, especially during hot and humid periods, which can create an environment where disease can thrive. Disease symptoms from overwatering can often be mistaken for dry grass. Deep and infrequent watering is encouraged because it improves soil health and trains roots to chase the moisture down, making them stronger, resulting in a healthier and more drought-resistant lawn. To further reduce water consumption, we suggest establishing grass species that require even less attention. Pine fescues need a lot less water than Kentucky bluegrass. For more tips, please reach out. Naturally, we can help. So in that video, I also said that you normally only need to water July, August. That video was made many years ago. So that isn't necessarily true anymore. There's been some springs where we need to water, and just to reiterate, places that are sandy soil, south-facing slopes, you know your lawn best, so you know if you can see something drying out, put more water in it. So these are general tips that we talk about. In talking about disease symptoms, also wanted to just mention compost tea. If somebody has had a history of, fungal diseases, other things going on in the lawn, Compost tea can be a great way to add live micronutrients. They do a lot of things. We introduce millions of them, so the millions of them are doing millions of different things for the soil and for the plant. In generic terms, they improve plant health. They prevent diseases. They can aerate the soil at a microscopic level, so they can improve soil over time. And all of these things, making the grass plant healthier, will help deter weeds and pests. And so I'll just show one more video. This is the one about compost tea. Compost tea is a relatively new tool for turfgrass managers. It is quickly becoming popular as demand for chemical alternatives grows and the benefits of this treatment are realized. Compost tea is the water extract of dry compost that transfers beneficial microorganisms and fine particulate organic matter to the grass plant. With proper formulation, compost tea can positively affect plant health as well as soil health to suppress disease, insects, and weeds. Besides being an organic option, there are so many other ways compost tea treatments can provide benefits to your lawn. This list is just a start. Controls weeds by improving the nutritional value of the soil, decreases excess thatch by microbial activity, increases plant nutrition and productivity with the supply of microbial biomass, improves soil organic matter content and soil water holding capacity, suppresses and protects against turf diseases and insects. Compost tea is not only a positive choice for a lawn care program, it can also be an economical one. The low cost to spray large amounts of microorganisms and organic matter to increase readily available nutrients for the plant makes this cultural practice an attractive option for organic lawn care. Not only can compost tea applications reduce fertilization and weed control needs, but it can reduce the need for fungicides because compost tea has been linked to soil-borne disease suppression, resistance, and protection. For more information about this organic tool, please reach out today. Okay, so in thinking about, so compost tea is something that we do all summer long. You can always request it. You can do multiple applications of it. Many people have it as part of their program. Um, I kind of step from there into weed control. We've done our corn gluten in the early spring. Right now we're doing our liquid iron applications. We'll be doing those all through the summer into the fall. Multiple applications can help with different weeds. Some need multiple applications to be suppressed. The other part of our weed control is allelopathic grass species. So those are ones that we sow in the fall. So when we're looking at those seed mixes that I had showed earlier, we also look at varieties that have allelopathic capabilities. And so those are ones that ward off unlike things. And then the other things that help with our program and definitely help with the weed control is cultural methods, and that would be keeping your grass cut high and mowing. So mowing appropriately and watering appropriately. Those can aid greatly in the success of the weed control process. So the iron that we apply, it's chelated iron. So that is iron that's disguised as an amino acid. It will quickly oxidize, and you can see that by the weeds turning that black, purple, brown on the outside of the leaf. We can apply it in between 45 and 85 degrees. So you will note that sometimes we will not be able to complete our iron applications because it will get too hot. We typically can do it pretty late into October because it'll stay warm longer. It works well on Creeping Charlie. I think that is our most often asked question about weeds that we can control. The liquid iron works against Creeping Charlie. It still will not get it 100%. It will continue to stress it out, knock it back, slow the spread. The textbook answer for Creeping Charlie is to be persistent, to work as a neighborhood. So continuing with multiple applications of the iron is a useful wonderful tool. Weather can aid in it. So some of these summers that have been very hot and stressful, we've seen that the combination of iron and hot temperatures that it's been suppressed better than other years. Right now, you might notice that it is thriving because it's getting a lot of moisture and it loves moisture. It likes it likes shade, although it can live in multiple environments. And then you can see from this photo that it's the leaf blades are affected at different rates. So some more mature plants may not be affected. Some areas, just depending on where it is, in the sunlight, in the shade, it'll respond differently. That's part of why the multiple applications works well. And just something to note that, Creeping Charlie, its mode of action to recover is it puts down a new node and it grows beyond the stress of that iron. And so we want to repeat, stress it out. We save usually the fourth application for the fall time. So we kind of hit the weed when it's weak and preparing for dormancy. So you can see here, this is thistle being suppressed. You can see some of those leaves are being suppressed at different rates. Thistle's a tough one because it's very thick and spiny, so multiple applications are necessary for it to actually be eradicated. And then you can see from this picture, iron applied can help with the dandelions, clover, multiple other weeds. So this is just a visual and reminder about the other weeds that the iron is rated for. It does not work on all weeds, and some need more applications than others. Black medic is one we are seeing a lot of right now. It'll start blooming here in the midsummer. The two applications of iron usually will suppress this one. This is plantain. Plantain usually needs 4. Plantain's also a sign of compaction. So something that we look for, I see it often in like pathways that maybe a male person's using, in any other area that has a lot of traffic. It will suppress bull thistle as well as Canadian thistle. Those, again, needing 4 applications is usually what it needs for it to be fully suppressed. Chickweed, this is very common right now in this rain, and the iron works against that, so that works out nicely. This is creeping buttercup. I don't see that one as often. Dandelions. So dandelions, it will get this weed in 24 hours, but it's only going to get the dandelions that are out at the time of application. So we do want the dandelions to emerge before we come with the iron. Multiple applications will get multiple blooms of dandelions. Dandelions are biennial, so that means they're perennials, and they blow in by seed as annuals. We have several flushes of them, the biggest one being in the spring, but there's also a larger one that happens in the fall, and really they bloom and germinate all season long. So multiple applications can help with those subsequent blooms. This is dovefoot geranium, English daisy. That's not usually in a home lawn, but it can be suppressed with iron. False dandelion, we don't see this one as much. This is heel all, and heel all is part of a lot of pollinator blends. So just something to note that when you install a bee lawn, we can't spread or can't apply iron anymore because we'll suppress the things that are the flowering plants that are wanted in the lawn. So a challenge to have a bee lawn and control things like Creeping Charlie. This is lawn burrweed. Oxalis, this is also called yellow wood sorrel. This we've seen abundantly as well this spring. This is speedwell. This is shepherd's purse. And then this is cinquefoil. I don't see that one as often. White clover. So this is one that, again, people sow clover. Just something to note that We don't necessarily deem clover as a weed. Some people do, some people sow it. If you have a clover that you don't want, multiple irons is the only way that we can get rid of it. It will rebound from one application. Um, but if it's not a problem and you're encouraging it, then we wouldn't want to apply any more than one application of the iron. And this is the chamomile, and this is geranium. Those ones we don't see as much either. So just to end on a kind of a summary, organic lawn care is a process. Weed control is a process as well, part of our program. The things like diseases, we don't have necessarily any organic fungicides, but we have some tools to help relieve the symptoms that are being seen in a lawn. The longer you work in organic lawn care program, the better the results. We are improving soil over time. Soil takes millions of years to build up, and so it takes a long time to improve it as well. We always ask that a homeowner give the program at least 3 years before judging the success of it. Although even after 3 years, we always have a tolerance for 5 to 10% of weeds. It's good diversity for the lawn. It is our organic methods cannot get all weeds 100%. And then as we saw earlier, there's always tough spots along driveways, along sidewalks, along landscaping beds or wanted things. We can't apply iron too close to houses and fences and pavers, wanted plants, gardens. So there will always be tricky spots that are going to be hard to control. And then the organic process, the organic products just cost more money. So our program, we know, costs more than synthetic. We have less options, but we're lucky to have some options. And the goal of it is to just provide an alternative to synthetic and chemical products in our lawn and keep them out of our environment and our water and away from our pets and wildlife. And that's all I had for today. Does anyone have any questions or want me to go back to any of these slides? I know I moved a bit quickly. And you can type it or you can just unmute as well. And I'm leaving this on the baby. That's our daughter that is going to be 17 in a couple weeks here. Any questions or anything that I didn't go over that you'd like to discuss? I'm trying to keep some things consistent with the webinar and then make things timely. So I'm happy to talk about any of our other services. Okay.
There we go.
Oh, hello. Do you have a question?
I see that Lynn had a question in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it. Oops. Oh, I see my my second screen here is froze. Let me see if I can't get it to open.
I can just ask it. This is Lynn.
Sure. Hi.
And I just put it there, so you didn't miss it by long. But
Okay.
do you recommend trying to pull Creeping Charlie if you have a whole bunch of it? Or is it better just to let the liquid iron do its thing or something?
Yeah. So there's really several approaches you can do. So yes, we do recommend like heavy metal raking it. So if you get like a sand rake or something that can pull those rhizomes all in big long strands, that is really helpful, especially if you let's say you live near a wild area or maybe a neighbor where it's stemming from. If you rake it back in that direction, then it doesn't like being stressed out. So if you're stressing it out in your lawn, it will kind of switch its its energy into a different direction. So doing that in this, especially in the spring and the fall, spring when it's first getting going, so it has a lot of energy. If you're stopping it, it just has to fight longer, more to recover through that. The other thing though is if somebody were, let's say, raking it heavily so that all that's left are the little nodes that are into the soil, and then we come with the iron. The iron needs some sort of leaf material to hit. So I always say, raking it is not a problem, but anything that you can't get raked up or any of the leaves that are left, that's good for us to then suppress. And especially if you're able to get out there, if some people, it soothes them to get after it. I would never say no to that. It's always a good practice. But if you can't get out and rake, then there's all of that leaf material available for that iron to soak into, to be suppressed. So that's why they say be persistent. Is you can rake it a whole lot, but you'll find that it can still come back. It doesn't mean that it's gone, and it's just those little nodes that are in the soil that can regrow new leaves.
So maybe if I haven't raked it by the time you're due to do the liquid iron, maybe leave it because you're going to get treated. And then is there any advice for how to make sure? Because sometimes it's got grass mixed in. And if I'm too hard with the rake, then I feel like the grass gets pulled up too. Is there any
Yeah,
trick?
yeah. So it is. It's kind of like trying to be, you know, that perfect aggression where, it's easier when there's no grass and you can just get the whole thing up. But then you also have this challenge of when you have open, bare soil, weeds will fill in that. Creeping Charlie's a ground cover. It loves when there's no grass. It can fill in there really easily. When there is grass, I mean, part of when you pull the grass, the top off, the crown of that grass is still there, and so that can regrow. And maybe a good strategy would also be, so let's say you haven't raked, we come with the iron, then after that, like give it a week for that iron to kind of work, then maybe rake it so you're hitting it like a double whammy, two stressors at once. Doing the raking in the fall before we seed is another good strategy, because then we can get some grass growing to better outcompete it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, and then, yeah, so I see that Colleen said multiple treatments for iron, the best approach to eradicating thistles. Yes. So those thistles, they will recover through really, for sure, 2 applications. You can see them turn kind of black and purple, but they'll recover through that. I've even had a lot of thistle in my backyard that went into winter after 4 applications of iron, and it was still alive, but it did not overwinter well. So it is, going into winter stressed out. There's, I always say, if you still see it going into winter, don't be nervous, because then you may not still see it in the spring. Thistles they have a huge underground rhizome, so they might be, like I have a wooded area. They'll be in the woods, and then they kind of go underneath the soil and pop up in different places. So you want to, control it within the lawn, and just know that if you have a wild area or a landscape bed that they're in, it needs to be controlled in there as well, because that's where it's stemming from. Even though they might be a little bit further apart from each other, they're really this part of the same plant.
Should you pull the thistle like a week after treatment too, or is that better to leave until it dies?
Yeah, that one I would say leave, just because it has such an extensive system that it will regrow. I'd want that, when a plant is stressed out and the leaf, it's trying to put energy into something that's stressed. I think it's a better strategy to leave it. I do understand that when people, if you just don't want to look at it, certainly pull it and let's just and see what happens, see how it comes back. Sometimes it's like that. perfect storm of if our environment's doing something, we're hitting it with the iron, and then you're pulling it. It's so stressed out it won't regrow. That's one of the kind of tricky things with organic lawn care is that the environment does play a role in it. And certain years, everything's looking great and with little effort, and other years it just takes us more because you know, it's the nature of what we're experiencing right now, where things aren't necessarily normal and they fluctuate kind of dramatically. So then if you're growing a clover lawn and you want to treat thistle, so yes, I would pull it in that situation, or you could do something like we don't we don't spot spray the weeds because the grass around it will turn green because that iron is a micronutrient and it will kind of look polka dotty. But you can buy iron retail. There's lots of different varieties of it. So I always say, you want to look at the bottle and see what it says. We use a product that's chelated iron with HEDTA. So actually, I'll write that in here. So FEHEDTA. So that's the form of chelation of the iron that we're using. You can find products like that, and you could just try to very delicately hand spray that thistle. It's easier when you do it by hand, and then you just try to saturate the leaf itself and not get the clover that might be around it. Another strategy might be if you pull it, or if you get the iron and you can suppress it, then you can maybe sow a little clover in that spot to try to get something to take its place. Excuse me. Any other questions about creeping Charlie, other weeds? And I've been just telling people I'm not necessarily a plant or tree expert, but I have been seeing just a lot of things that are doing unusual stuff, things that we might not have ever seen before. And even talking to the U, we've been seeing a lot of winter kill, which is something that's common on like a golf course or something that you're heavily managing. Winter desiccation is something we've been worried about the last few winters, and that would be lack of snow cover and really, really cold temperatures. We've just had not necessarily too cold, but 2 winters of lack of snowfall with the summers of stress. It is trees are having a very hard time surviving through that. Some of our hardiest things like oaks are not working or not living very well. So just note that if there's things going on in your lawn, you can always take a picture and send it to us for us to do some investigating. We can go out and take a look. But there are some strange things that are happening now that we're chalking up to just these multiple years of not typical weather for us. Vinegar and alcohol spray on tough spots of thistle. That is something you can try as well. I've never tried alcohol, but I have used straight vinegar. I've also been told by customers a concoction of 1 part Epsom salt, 1 part vinegar to 1 part Dawn dish soap. That combination can kill. Especially if you have like rock beds or a driveway, it's a non-selective, so it can kill everything. You just know to be careful with that kind of stuff because it can kill the grass. It will kill the grass with it. I've heard about Dawn dish soap not being very environmentally friendly, so that's one that I'm not really promoting anymore. But when you put the Dawn dish soap in there, it's helping it stick to that plant and really work to kill it.
I have a question about the organic compost tea because I think this is actually how I found out about you guys a few years ago. I had heard or went to some not webinar, it was in person years ago. But anyway, kind of got turned on with the compost tea thing, and then I know you've recently added it to your program in the last few years. So I guess my question is, would you recommend just for kind of like overall weed control or like health of the lawn, like adding, if I wanted to add an additional service, would it be the compost tea or would it be an additional liquid iron application?
Hmm? Yeah, so compost tea is it doesn't replace weed control, and it doesn't replace fertilizer. It's not doing those two things, but what it's doing is aiding in that. It is beneficial for any lawn because it's doing some people say they'll notice it green up, or it just kind of spruces things up because these live microorganisms are helping in a lot of various ways. So it's applying an iron or a compost tea application to help with creeping Charlie wouldn't be a good approach, or thistle or clover, because it's kind of helping things live well. It's helping grass, though, be healthier and stronger and better able to outcompete. I like adding, if somebody has 4 irons for weeds, it can be stressful on the grass to have that 4. That's the maximum we can do in a season. So when we have 4, I like to add in a compost tea because it gives kind of a nice reprieve and gives the grass some support through that stressful time. There's no lawn that wouldn't benefit from it. We do, since acquiring Organic Bob, they had some programs that were just compost tea and some liquid fertilizer. And that the idea of that is just growing really good grass, really healthy grass. Healthy grass. There's not necessarily weed control in that program, but the idea is that it's nice, thick, lush grass that weeds can't encroach on. So then, yeah, specific concerns with your lawn, you can always ask us, like, I have this concern, what's my best use of money? Um, and I should also note that I know there's things there's like kits you can buy that you can kind of do your own compost tea. It's a bit tricky because you have to aerate it. We do a lot of adding things in. So we make our own, we aerate it, and then we add a mycorrhizae, which is a fungi afterwards, and that helps the roots get these little like auxiliary roots so they can help the grass obtain faraway nutrients. It can help the grass talk better to the soil, all these millions of things that are going on. So that is something to be said, where I've seen at like home shows where there can be these kits where people can brew their own and then apply it to like gardens, or apply it to your landscaping beds. That's not a service that we do. And so, yeah, I mean, if I'm not sure if I'm answering it accurately for you, but compost tea is a great addition, and it really can be added anytime. So we do it from really from June, and we'll do it through. We don't want it to be too cold because then those microbes will die in the cold. So I would say through September is when we would typically apply that. And then iron, another thing to note is that sometimes if for sake of money, if you can't do 4 applications during the season, doing one extra but saving it for the late fall for things like thistle, clover, creeping Charlie, plantains, it can be I wouldn't say that it will eradicate it, but it is a good chance to do one more application at a time that is more successful, because that I think I said it earlier, the weeds are preparing for dormancy, so they bring all their carbohydrates down to their root system. And so when you apply something, it takes it in more quickly. And then when it's in a weakened state in preparing for dormancy, you're going to be better off suppressing it by stressing it when it's already weak.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That was really helpful.
Good. Any other questions about the weather, plants, weed control, or any suggestions for future topics? I always I ask Ronnie and Justin and Ryan and Isabel that they're answering the phones all day long. And so I always ask what are the kind of current concerns, and then kind of gearing these talks to what's going on right now that we're seeing and concerned about.
I guess I'll ask one more question about like overseeding. Because I know you guys come and do that in the fall, and that makes sense. And we try to water it, and kind of get it to take in the fall. But then I don't know. I just feel like in the spring, I'm like, I feel like it looks, looked better last fall. So I'm doing some overseeding now, kind of after the cornmeal gluten or whatever. I forget if that's the right thing that you do in the spring. Um, just because I looked at the weather and it was going to be cool and rainy and stuff here now for a while. But timing wise, is that maybe not ideal? Like, obviously, I should just kind of stick to the fall plan. I don't know if other people experience that, but I don't know. I feel like mine doesn't really take or stick all winter.
Yeah, so there's a couple things there. So in the fall, the reason we do it in the fall is we usually have enough sunlight. The cool season grasses like cool weather to germinate. Immature grass can better overwinter than it can over summer. So it is a bit tricky when we sow grasses in the spring because they might come up really nice. But then sometimes if we just kind of forget about it, if it gets hot and dry, or let's say we leave on vacation and we're not watering it, it might just kind of peter out because it's too young and doesn't have the root system to support itself through that. So seeding in the spring is always it's really the second best time of year to do it. It can be successful, especially if you think of it as a year-long process. And I'm saying that more in like terms of a new establishment. Like you have a bare area, you can't just let that sit all season long because it'll just get weeds. So you have to seed in the spring, and then just knowing to keep that going through the summer. You just really want to baby it along. You want to make sure you're watering it appropriately and just observing it. Make sure that it doesn't get too stressed out. So what we do in the fall is we're just overseeding, and we're doing 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet. And that is it's really just meant to thicken and diversify. It doesn't get into the nooks and crannies. So doing more seeding or asking for seed, you can always ask for seed from us. Once a year, we'll drop off seed for you to sprinkle around and do. You're doing the right approach, that you see rain coming up. It's a perfect time to just get some seed down. See what happens, see if you can fill in areas. I should say that our native grasses, like the grasses that most of us have in our lawns, a lot of us includes perennial ryegrass. That's very, very common in Minnesota. We never sow that because it's never part of our mix, because it doesn't use, like, in a research way, every 4 years it will not overwinter. So that's part of what we're doing with the overseeding, is trying to get species that are going to do better longer, and newer species that overwinter well. But yeah, seeding in the spring. So couple things you can do. So we do offer slit seeding, and that's where we use a machine. It will sow seed right into the soil. It helps it germinate better. It will be protected. We don't aerate in the spring because when we open up those little soil pockets, weeds will fill in the spring faster than the grass will germinate. And so just opening up the soil to sunlight and then watering it will sometimes create more of a weed problem. So we don't really want to do that. So that's why we slit seed. And then we also do things like dry compost in seed. And so that can be throughout the whole lawn. It can address bare areas kind of thickly, and then other areas more thinly. And then we're adding seed to that. So it's a bit more complete seeding, and it also is adding organic matter to the soil and providing a good material for that seed to sow. And it's also a way where we could put the corn gluten down, and then if you put a layer of dry compost and then seed into that, you can really seed the day after corn gluten, as long as you're creating a barrier for that. The idea is the corn gluten can get put on very early. We stop the corn gluten when the soil reaches 55 degrees because that's when the crabgrass is going to start to germinate as long as and among other weeds. And 55 degrees is about when the soil temperature is right for seeding. So that between the corn and then you could seed and then you have to you have to separate the iron and the corn out from seeding efforts because we don't want to spray new seed with iron. You can seed 24 hours after the iron, so we can put the iron down and you could seed immediately after that. But we'll send those emails like what to do before and after each service. A lot of that contains seeding information, just so if you want to do it on your own, we make sure we time it right. If we're scheduled and you had seeded, you just let us know and we'll just push you out to make sure that your seeding effort does well. But you're right. There's like this year we had a lot of like winter kill, where some years people will want to seed really early. You get out of winter and everything looks kind of bad. You'd never want to seed too early because the soil's just not warm enough for it. And sometimes the grass can fill in much better. And so we've had people often that will cancel seeding because they'll say, actually, it's not as bare as I thought. So sometimes in the early season, we'll say, well, why don't you wait a few weeks, see what it looks like then. But doing seeding yourself, asking us to price out for slit seeding or compost in seed, we're always happy to do that. Yeah, and the aeration and overseeding, it just doesn't always get into all the spots. And so, continuing with that, it's always a good practice if you seed in spring and fall every year, or I always recommend to like schools that don't have money and they want to control weeds. I'll always say, the better approach is just to grow grass and grass. Then I would just sow it in the spring and sow it in the fall and call it good. That it's a good strategy there. Did I answer your question in all of that?
Yeah, no, thank you. I know this is like so interesting. I love it. So thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
all the research. And yeah, like your emails and stuff are very helpful. So I always try to read those and follow the rules because I want it to be successful in our lawn. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for reading it. And yeah, we try to just find different ways to communicate. So this is another one a customer had suggested to me to do these, and I had never even thought of it. So these are helpful for me to just see what the questions are and be able to answer it. We give a lot of tips, but it can be very specific to your own home. So we understand that everyone's got specific needs. And then I see that Lynn was talking about she had good luck with dormant seeding in mid-November last year, right before it was a freeze snow. She thought without much snow, the grass wouldn't germinate in the spring, but it did well. And this was for a bare area. And that can also be a really good strategy. We do not do dormant seeding because the timing has to be so specific and we can't really plan our crews to be successful in that. So, but we'll always give tips. I always try to dormant seed spots like at our shop or at my home. When I see that the ground isn't quite frozen yet, but we're anticipating to have a snow event, that is the time to do it. What you want it to do is get covered with snow, freeze in place, and then in the spring when it starts to thaw out, that grass will start to germinate. It can be tricky, so I'm glad that Lynn had success with it. I also had we had our lawn hydro seeded, and it was at not the best time of year to do it in the not quite dormant seeding, but a little past the time for fall seeding. And I thought this spring I didn't think it took, and lo and behold, it did. So it's a really good strategy. Anytime you can, that's why we give seed away. Is anytime you kind of want to sprinkle it around. It's some of it's just luck because if the weather changes on a dime, we could like in the winter time, if it's not done perfectly, then none of it will germinate, and so not something that we want to sell. Any other questions? Well, we're about at an hour here, so I will stop the recording here shortly, and but you can always email us with any questions. Feel free to go on our website and our YouTube page and watch videos of things that you're interested in. And yes, if you have any suggestions on things that you'd like us to make a video on or to answer, we're always looking to add to our library and make sure that we're supporting you and the lawns. So I really appreciate everyone participating. This will be recorded and put up on our Facebook, or well, it probably will be on Facebook. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on our website. You can email me Shay, SHAY, at Team Lunseth, and that's LUNSETH .com. You can email me anytime. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.